Welcome to Red All Over YouTube. I'm Graham Mack, and I'm here with the editor of Red All Over the Land, which is the longest running Liverpool fanzine, 26 years and counting. This is the issue that's out now. I'm with the editor, John Pearman, and we also have a special guest, which is Benny Punk from the Brighton Kop, which is an official Liverpool supporters club in Brighton that was built from nothing. If you've read the article in the latest issue that's out of Red All Over the Land, you'll know all about Brighton Kop. Why do they call you Benny Punk, Benny?
Well, basically, I'm hiding on Facebook because of I'm a youth worker and worked in sort of social care and stuff. So I just set up an account, Facebook account about 10 years ago, and I used to have a much more punk style. It wasn't really to do with the music. I used to dress up in quite flamboyant garb. So I just set up my Facebook as Benny Punk, and it stuck. And then when we started the sports club, everybody thought that was my name. So I've never really bothered to correct people.
All right, well, we'll call you Benny Punk then. And you're wearing a Brighton Kop red shirt tonight, is that right? Is that the official? You got merch?
Right. Yeah, we've got some merchandise, yeah, scarves and mugs and all that kind of stuff on our website. So yeah, I just thought I'd put it on for tonight.
Because I'm wearing what is just a red T-shirt, right? As you can see, there's no badge on it or anything. But I like to think of it as a replica shirt of my first ever Liverpool shirt. Because all that happened was, when I was a kid, we're talking like early 70s here, my mother just bought a red T-shirt and she sewed a number on the back, well, a 1 and a 0, which was number 10, which was John Toshak, which is my favourite player. And that was a Liverpool shirt to me. There was no badge or anything on it. That was all you did. You just got a red T-shirt and you put a number on the back of your favourite player. Everybody did it that way. So I like to think of this red T-shirt as an actual replica, although it hasn't got the number 10 on the back, as an actual replica of my first ever Liverpool shirt when I was about 6, probably. So what about you, John? When are we going to get some merch for Red All Over the Land?
Well, we're actually looking at this. I've been talking to my nephew to get him to design something. However, he's waylaid at the moment due to an operation on his shoulder. But
okay, well, let's hope he gets better soon.
In the new year, and we're going to go for something. It will be fit in the new year.
All right. Well, as well as talking to Benny a bit later on about Brighton Kop and all that, we've got a special guest who is Brian Barwick. He's the former head of BBC Sport. He was the editor of Match of the Day. He was the controller of ITV Sport after that. He's a former executive of the Football Association and a regular columnist in the Liverpool Echo. Now, we had to, I can't even remember the reason. Can you, John? This was on Friday. We had to record the chat with him. We set up, we just wanted to make sure that the technology worked. And he was hell-bent on us doing it there and then, which you and I, at the time, I don't think were so keen on that. We wanted him to come on tonight live. But as it turns out, something happens in that recording that wouldn't have, there's no way it would happen tonight. And it is actually something very special and very, very LFC. Have I described it right, John?
I think so, Graham, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to do a recording. I wanted it to be live, but yeah, it couldn't be changed after that happened.
Yeah, but the rest of this show is live. If you're watching it live, if you're watching a recording, then you're going to get another recording. It's very confusing. But anyway, the Brian Barwick piece of tonight was recorded on Friday night. So it's not that long ago, but before the Milan game anyway. Anyway, so Brian Barwick coming up. We will be talking to Benny about Brighton Kop. But if you don't know what Red All Over the Land is, the fanzine, John Pearman, the editor, 26 years ago is when it started. And now it's the only printed fanzine that's left, isn't it? As well as the longest running.
The only one at Liverpool, yeah. There's a few more surfacing, not at Anfield, unfortunately. But there's a few more surfacing. A few non-league clubs are starting having fanzines because but they work closely with their clubs, so it's good. So all is not lost on the fanzine front. And
okay, and
we can keep going for a while.
You've got an original reader you need to say hello to tonight as well.
Yes, it's the guy who introduced me to Benny. And the guy's Mark Pierce. We used to know him as Mark Pidd. And he's been subscribing since we were in single issue figures. So that was either 5, 6 or 7. And I do remember him sending me a cheque. I lost the cheque, but I got him to send me another one. And that's how it worked. I think I blamed the post office or some. He blamed me.
Right.
But Mark's been with us so long. So as from the end of this season, he will no longer subscribe. He will be on the mailing list. He'll be one of our guest on the mailing list, like a few others. Yeah,
Right. So
friends.
if you want to
friends
get this for free, all you've got to do is subscribe for 26 years, and then from then on they'll be free.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a great deal, that, John. Yeah.
That
Thanks.
is, yeah. And you don't have long to wait, do you?
Not really. No.
You're
Okay.
going to get a loyalty card, John, stamp,
Yeah.
like in Cafe Nero. It's going to need to be a big card for 26 years.
26 years, which is slightly shorter than the season ticket waiting list at Anfield at the minute. As someone who's on it and has been on it, I don't know, when did we live in Teesside, John? When I lived in Teesside, it's over 10 years.
2004, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been on it since then. So anyway, let's hope the Anfield Road extension gets me the season ticket that I want. They reckon another, 7,000 seats or whatever that'll do. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you're watching this live, especially if you know Benny from Brighton Kop and you'd like to leave a comment, then you can do that. Just put the comment, and as long as I remember and think to look, I can read your comment out. So if you want to leave a comment as we go, if there's something that's said or something that we do, well then just go to the comment section, leave a comment, and I'll read it out if I think on to check. So we should start, John, with the Florrie, which I couldn't make because I wasn't well. But the Florrie in Liverpool is the Florence Institute in the Dingle, which is where an area of Liverpool where my dad grew up, and they hosted the Red All Over the Land anniversary night, which was a year late because of COVID and stuff. Special guest was John Barnes. I know he was there, and he was signing his book. I know that because he signed this one to me, and you sent it to me. So thanks for that, John.
You're welcome.
How did it go then?
Well, to start with, John signed, I think, about 25 books for me, and a few others besides. He signed people's shirts that they'd brought along or programs. Steve Hales, who met John Barnes, I think it was in 1996 or somewhere around there. He had a photo with him, and then John Barnes signed that with Steve's son. So there was quite a lot done, and the audience included people like Jimmy McGovern, who did the Hillsborough documentary, amongst other things.
I think he's just been nominated for Freeman of the City as well.
Well, he deserves it. He deserves it. He's done a lot of work for things like the Hillsborough. It was him who kicked me into thinking when he did the documentary, and I thought to myself after watching it, we can't sit here and do nothing. You've got to do something. So that's when we got through the fanzine, got in touch with the them families, and subsequently we got in touch with the HJC, the Justice Campaign, and any other associated groups. So I thank Jimmy for that. I didn't get to speak to him on the night, and I didn't get to speak to Ricky Tomlinson, who was there as well. But it's always nice to know that Red All Over the Land now has royal approval.
A member of the royal family, was in attendance.
The royal family was there, yeah. So, and the whole event, with a lot of thanks to people like Tim Tierney and also Jamie Webster, and I'm sure everybody knows Jamie Webster by now. They did the auction for us, and we raised thousands of pounds through the auction. It was just watching them in action was incredible. I mean, I think they knew anybody that got any money, and I think they went and emptied their wallets. And the whole event, in the end, raised in excess of £12,000, which the Florrie will use for food banks, to feed people in the community, and also to help refurbish the building and such like things like that. So it was a great night. It really was a great night, and there was the raffle. We had some fantastic raffle prizes. We should
mention Alan Green as well, in case he's in case he's watching, because he's a regular columnist in Red All Over the Land as well, with the view from the radio tower. Alan Green, the former BBC radio commentator, you had him on stage and he interviewed John Barnes on stage.
He interviewed John, and it was quite good because for a time, and this might be very unusual for Alan, he couldn't get a word in with John, but it was great. And John spoke about his upbringing, his book, which you've got there, and it was just really enlightening. It wasn't hard to listen to them, if you understand me. It was easy to listen to them, and Alan has got obviously the professional air of doing the interviews, and it really went well. And then there were people from the audience asked questions both to Alan and to John. So yeah, it all went very well, and we were blessed to have them with us, definitely.
Somebody else who was there, John, was Cheeky Jurgen, he's your discovery, really, isn't he?
Well, maybe. That's nice to say, Graham. Yeah,
I think he is.
You've become his friend. You've been to his flat, and you've seen it from the inner sanctum. So yeah.
Now, Cheeky Jurgen, if you don't know, he's written this book. Cheeky Jurgen is the bloke. He looks like Klopp, and he's there was an article in a newspaper about him. I think it was to do with the launch of the book, and it was one of the best headlines I've ever seen. It said Kloppelganger, which I think is good. Anyway, his book was launched, and he invited me to the book launch in London at his flat, which is right in the middle of central London. So he's a property developer or something. But anyway, the book is called Cheeky Jurgen, A Book of Cheeky Sayings, the story of the accidental birth and creation of Cheeky Jurgen. But you were the first one to get him to Anfield as well, weren't you, a few months ago?
Well, he came on his own, obviously, with Patsy, his PA. But we got him up there. We told him we'd be there for the last game against Crystal Palace last season. We couldn't go in the ground, and of course he stood amongst the fans, and it was quite incredible how many people actually thought that's Jurgen, and that is true. People were bemused by it, and the look on the coach driver's face when he went, something to behold. Yeah,
because it was the team bus, wasn't it? Because the coach driver couldn't work out how Klopp had got off the bus. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were sitting next to me a minute ago. So it was good, and he held up a flare.
Right.
But,
okay.
We're quite proud at Red All Over the Land that we did give him, should we say, his break. Bit like
he was on episode 1 of Red All Over YouTube as well. Don't forget.
Yeah. Bit like the Beatles getting their first break. That we can point to that. So
yeah, it was like that. That really that dodgy clip of him in the cavern in '62 doing Some Other Guy. That's what his first appearance on Red All Over YouTube will be likened to in the history of Jurgen Klopp. That's the clip.
6 years time, people will be able to look at that and say, I knew him. Yeah.
That's right. And he enjoyed it at the Florrie as well, did he? Had a good time?
He certainly did, and he definitely enjoyed himself. He was walking around mixing with all the celebrities, and very much so, yeah. I'll leave it at that. They both enjoyed themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, then we're moving on from the Florrie. Something that happened recently was the derby. What's your take on this year's derby? And you can join in if you want, if you've got an opinion on this as well, Benny.
Well, my opinion is what a fantastic night. It's I couldn't go because we were on holiday, but any win at what we call the Woodyard is brilliant.
At Woodison Park, yeah.
Yeah, to win 4-1. And it was just, as I think I put in the fanzine, our fans sang songs of joy, they sang praise of Raffle. Everton fans booed. And they've got to be honest, they're experts when it comes to booing.
Yeah. No. I loved when they did the Shakin' Stevens song, Merry Christmas, Everton. That was fun. And the Raffle chants were good too. Yeah.
Yeah. But... it's only one game. You've got to carry on winning, and as we did at Wolverhampton, and that was totally different. Virtually the last real kick of the game, and fantastic. And I'm one of those. I've never. I will be honest and say I've never been a big Divock Origi fan, over the last few years, I've felt he's underachieved,
Yeah.
but he's come on now and he's done this and he scored again last night.
Yeah.
So you'll hear no more criticism of Divock Origi from me.
Where
And
did
if
you
they
watch
want
the?
to,
Sorry, John. What was that?
I'm going to say, if they do bring out that book that Jurgen's calling for, I'll buy 2 copies and we'll give one of them away as well.
Okay, well, if
Yeah.
Jurgen's watching, now you know.
Yeah.
And Benny, where did you watch it?
Well,
The derby,
unfortunately,
first of all.
I missed the derby. So we have we've actually got. Well, I saw it, but I was watching it from home.
Yeah.
So we've got 4 venues now across, because we're the official Liverpool supporters club for Brighton and Sussex. So we started out as the Brighton Kop many years ago, and then so we've got venues now in Brighton, Eastbourne, Chichester, and Horsham. So we had events at all 4 of those venues, but unfortunately I was not very well that week, so I'd stayed at home and watched it, which is always annoying when you have a result like that. I mean, obviously we had the big result against United, and the atmosphere in the pub for us is amazing when we have those kind of nights. So by all reports, it was an amazing evening across all the venues. But yeah, so I missed it sadly. I mean, it's one of those, isn't it? However, it's the whole cliche about the form book goes out the window, and I always feel nervous. I always think that's somewhere where we're going to drop points, particularly at Goodison. Of course, there's no real evidence base for that, but it's hard to let go of that feeling, that sense that this is going to be where we slip up. And it's like, then they know they're going to have the bragging rights, and if we lost the title by 2 points or whatever, there's always that fear, isn't there, that's going to be the one where it goes wrong. So we flew out the traps in that game. It was quite terrifying. If I was any opposition fan watching that, I'd be like, oh, for Christ's sake, how are we going to stop this lot? So that was amazing. Then it was sort of the complete opposite, wasn't it, with the Wolves game? It was so frustrating. I mean, I don't think we played badly at all. I think we were piling on the pressure and creating decent enough chances. But I mean, I'd given up. And of course, again, the evidence base is for Liverpool, don't give up, because we have got it in us. We've proven particularly in recent years, particularly under Klopp, that nothing is impossible, and those last minute or very late goals are consistently part of our approach these days. But I have to be honest. I mean, I was watching that one at home as well, on a cheeky stream, and I'd given up. I thought I was starting to get angry and frustrated, like I do when I think we've thrown something away. And
especially after the derby being such a spectacle. Yeah.
Well,
Although even when it was 0-0 at 90+ minutes, it had still been quite a good game, the Wolves game, to watch.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Unlike last night, which really wasn't, as it turns out. I mean, it had its moments, but it wasn't. I would think that most of the Wolves game was more exciting to watch than most of the Milan game.
Yeah, I would definitely say that.
I thought last night, but basically, Milan had got nothing to offer, and I think, because somebody said after the game, the Italian league at the moment is not what it used to be. There was a time when you drew AC Milan, you drew Inter Milan, you drew Juve. You knew that you were on a hide into nothing. It was you could well get beat. They could beat anybody, not just in England. They could beat any team in Europe. They were that good.
Yeah.
But of course, we've got the history with AC Milan, and we all know how good they were.
Yeah.
Last night they weren't good, and I thought some of the Liverpool players they went through they put themselves in the right positions. They were very, very professional, and I think the one thing that we've learnt under Klopp is the players now that come in, they are pieces of the so-called jigsaw. You can put any of them in there and they work. And I'll just say, last night, I just thought Nat Phillips was amazing. You know, okay, it was up against a 40-year-old, but he was up against a 40-year-old legend. And and Nat's only played 45 minutes football this season, and at the first team level. And
but the confidence to do a Cruyff turn in a penalty box.
I mean, I do believe a couple of Milan players went out and bought a burger. They were that far out the ground when he did it. Yeah, amazing. And we scored the 2 goals. We were never ever in any real danger, and that was it. So yeah, and to get to win all 6 games, it isn't unique because the 2 other teams could also do it. But it's the first time we've done it. First time an English team's done it, and it was tremendous. The whole European group of death. Well, and R.I.P. to it because we
Exactly,
put it there.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
it never actually sprung to life, did it?
Yeah, I just get the feeling this season has come alive since the derby, the Wolves game, and then the Milan game. I just, for me, I think the derby kind of lifted everything off, and I think now the gap between the two teams, and we can probably safely say this because there won't be any Evertonians watching, but I think the gap is now so far. I think an example of it is if you were to ask an Evertonian to be honest and say to them, if you could have one Liverpool player in the Everton side, which one would you choose? I don't think they'd be able to pick one because they'd be spoilt for choice. I mean, who would you have? Alisson, Mo, Trent? I mean, you just name them. I'm sure if an Everton fan was honest and was offered a Liverpool player, they would be absolutely spoilt for choice. Yet, if us as Liverpool fans were offered an Everton player, I don't think we'd touch any of them.
No,
I don't think any of them would get in our side.
That would be the key question. If you were going to do a honest, genuine combined 11, I really don't see any of their single one of their player or even their squad.
That is how far apart the two clubs are right now.
They'd struggle to get one on the bench.
I don't even think they'd do that.
That's with 9 subs now, John, as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, then. Well, sad news since last read all over YouTube. We lost Ray Kennedy.
That's true. And another, a genuine Liverpool legend because he achieved so much during his time. He was there, he came, to join the day Shankly retired. I don't know what must have been going through his mind. He was sitting there thinking, "I'll go and meet my new manager," and he said, "You're not. He's gone." It's
not just it's Bill Shankly's gone as well.
It's just you can't really. It wouldn't happen today. That's a fact. Because it doesn't work like that. But I just think Ray Kennedy, Bob Paisley saw something in him, and he moved him from the old what he came as was a striker, and then he moved him to this midfield role, and he scored goals. And he was absolutely brilliant at it, and a genuine 100% footballer. And I'm not just saying that because of what's happened, but and towards the end of his career, he was always playing with the onset of Parkinson's, and he didn't know it. People didn't know it back then. And he achieved so much. And in the next issue of the fanzine that comes out this weekend, a guy called Brighton Kop actually knew Ray, and he's written a tribute to him. We've also got another one from John Elliott in Scotland. But Carl knew Ray, and he actually met him, and he just talks of how wonderful he was. And what he went through, I've seen people with Parkinson's. My mother had Parkinson's, and it does trap you. And obviously we know about Muhammad Ali. But we did something through Read All Over the Land. Graham, you were heavily involved in this. We had a penalty shootout on the pitch at Anfield. We had 3 or 4 people come on to take penalties in front of the Kop at half-time. And the proceeds of that went to Parkinson's awareness, and that was all inspired by Ray. We couldn't give the money to Ray; it had to go to Parkinson's awareness, and it was a great time. And as I say, so you've got your memory of that. You've actually done something not many of the fans have done, haven't you, Graham?
Well, I was lucky enough to do it twice, and I'm glad I did, because that first year it was for Ray Kennedy. Was it the Charlton game that was half-time? I can't remember the game now. Anyway, I ran out of the tunnel after touching the liver bed wearing a Liverpool strip to a full house at Anfield and was completely freaked out. Now, I'm not a great footballer at all, but you got to take 2 penalties, and I missed them both, like both of them. And I walked off dejected thinking, wow, I've had the chance of a lifetime to score a goal at the Kop end at a full house, a full Kop, and the Kop were cheering and, you know, giving everybody encouragement. They weren't ignoring it. They were really getting into it. And I've missed both of them, you know. But luckily enough, the following year we did it for Marina Dalglish's charity. Was it?
No, it was for Ray again. It was all.
Oh, was it for Ray again the second year?
Yeah,
Okay, I don't know why I got that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got the chance to do it again. And because I got that, by that time I was living in Bournemouth. I was doing the breakfast show on the local radio station down there. So I got in touch with a player we used to have on the show. It was Stephen Purchase from AFC Bournemouth. And I said, you've got to show me how to take a penalty. And so for weeks I'd go to their training and I'd sit, he'd show me, you know, pick your spot, don't change your mind, it's it as hard as you can, whatever. And then so the following year, the first one I took, I got. The second one I missed, but I'd scored at the Kop. I'd done it, you know, but yeah, and that's all thanks to the inspiration of what Ray Kennedy was doing, raising money for Parkinson's and raising awareness of it and everything. So, it's very sad.
Was it right? So I think was it 5 leagues and 3 European Cups Kennedy won with Liverpool?
Yeah.
Well, he was with Paisley. Well, Paisley did 3 European Cups, so he must have done 3, didn't he?
But he also won the double with Arsenal.
Yes,
he did, beating us at Wembley in '71 when I cried my eyes out. Yeah.
So you know, that was his career was brilliant, and I'll say Liverpool, Bob Paisley, that made him into a totally different player. And what a man, what a player.
It's amazing to think that, though, isn't it? If you think now, you know, that I guess Liverpool players of that era, when you look at their kind of honours sheet, they're all kind of very high level of honours and stuff. But it is amazing when you think now, because it's, you know, things have changed for Liverpool. Look like they're starting to come back. But, you know, if you think of any of our players now to get 5 leagues and 3 European Cups under their belt, it's one hell of an achievement, isn't it? And you can get very complacent about those 70s and 80s players and think, well, yeah, that's just what they're doing. But to earn your place and keep your place in a side of that standard, winning those kind of level of honours is truly remarkable, isn't it?
And to be such an important part of that side as well. Ray Kennedy really was at the front of the midfield there. There
was also what the old UEFA Cup in there as well. So you know, he played in
73, wasn't it? Yeah.
So no, 75 was it 75? Yeah. So he didn't play in the first one. It
was a bit later. Yeah.
So he played in that, and you know, tremendous honours list. Like Benny said, if any of the current team end up with that on the CV, we'll all be happy.
Yeah.
Yes, we
will.
will.
All be happy. Yeah.
Well, they've been rating.
My headaches, but yeah.
They've been rating players lately, and a few weeks ago we had the Ballon d'Or, which was a travesty. Mo Salah came 7th. Whoever decides that, and I don't know how it's decided, says there are 6 players in the world better than Mo Salah. There are not. How did that happen? There are not 6 players better than Mo right now. There aren't.
Well, all I can say is to quote John Henry a few years ago when Arsenal offered some money for Suarez, he said, "What are they smoking down there?" And I think that's probably about this. I don't know how. I mean, I didn't expect him to win it because it's based on a time period. But no, you know, I mean, no disrespect to Ronaldo, because Ronaldo's a fantastic footballer. He's had a fantastic career, but he didn't have a better year last year than Mo Salah. No. In fact, he would be the first to admit he probably had a disappointing year. And Lionel Messi, well, he left his club. Barcelona were on the way down. He was still having nightmares from that 4-0 defeat. So how could he be the best player in the world at the moment? You know, if they'd given it to somebody else, I wouldn't have grumbled, provided it wasn't Harry Kane. You know, I'd have been okay. But no, he's not 7th.
No,
2nd or 3rd, maybe.
Top three, and I would have been okay. All right, I'll give you that. But he's not 7th. There are not 6 better than him.
It's like a couple of years ago when I think Virgil van Dijk got 2nd or something. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah,
I don't really even understand it. I don't get what the point of it is. You know,
who judges it?
Football's a team game, so it's about how the team play, and you get your reward. You get a trophy at the end of the season if you've been the best team, as evidenced by your points, or you're beating other teams in 2 legs or whatever in the in the cup competition. So I've never understood this individualized. Well, I know clubs do it, Player of the Year and stuff. I'm not even sure I'm that into that. When it's a collective thing and a team sport, it's just like the team get the reward or not.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I mean,
sorry, John.
So, I mean, in the old days, the media would get together and all the journalists would get together and have their footballer of the year. That's fine. That's them just deciding it. And that started just in the early post-war years. But that was fun. But now it's come to something, and you get them almost sensationalising about it, especially on things like Sky, where it becomes a big talking point. It's not. It's like Benny said, football's a team game. You know, I couldn't care less who wins the Golden Boot, the Golden Glove, or anything. If Liverpool win the league, I'm happy with that. I don't need, individual honours, fine. Do it behind closed doors, whatever. But no, the it's a team game, and that's all that matters. I don't care who gets the other things; they don't matter. It's like when they have now. There's a big thing now when they have Player of the Month awards. On TV, Manager of the Month. Yeah. I mean, Bob Paisley. I don't know if he drank much, but blimey, how much whiskey did he drink?
Bell's whiskey every month.
No.
So talking to the Liverpool team, is this Liverpool team as good as the season we won it?
I would say this squad is better than the squad that won it. That is because back then, if we got 2 or 3 players out, no disrespect to any player that's now gone, but we had people like Lovren and Lallana. We had people, and for a time, people like Skirtle, and all these players were around for a bit of the time. But the thing is, then if we had a couple of players missing, then we got problems. But now it seems to me like we've got this young Tyler Morton, or Harvey Elliott when he comes back, Cade Gordon who's coming through, only 17 or 18. We've
Nico
got
Williams,
Nico Williams, got the Ox. We've got people like that, and not to forget, of course, Steve Okereke. We've got all these players now, and give us a clean bill of health just for a few months, and we'll see how we go. I just think this is a very good side. I think City and Chelsea have possibly got better squads in depth, but they haven't got a manager like we've got.
What about you, Benny? Are we as good as when we won it?
Well, time will tell. I mean, I think so, because it's not a hugely different squad because of the way we operate and not having the big new shiny toys every transfer window. I was just trying to think. I mean, obviously Ginny went out, Lallana, Ginny I think was a bit of a loss, but we've got Jota in since then, Thiago, Curtis Jones has come good. I was just thinking Naby Keita's net neutral because we're not seeing anything of him then or now, so that's kind of, but if he gets fit, I think there's something in there that he's going to add another element. So I think there's not much of a big change. So I think we probably, if the question is are we as good, I think yes. Are we a bit better? Quite possibly, because I think there are a few more options in there and young players coming through that weren't there and have matured a little bit. I think Jota's the big difference, having Jota there as an option. And obviously, we've got the Africa Cup of Nations coming up, so that's where we're going to see if having Jota there and hopefully Bobby fit again will get us through that period. I think the challenge, what's really frustrating for us as Liverpool fans, is that in other time periods of the Premier League, we would have been absolutely walking this league. You think we lost the league on 97 points to City 3 years ago, and then we had to get a lot of points to win it the following year. And the standard is so high that unfortunately we've got to be really, really spot on. Obviously not perfect, but the margin for error, the room for error is very limited. And this year looks like it's going to be tighter and tougher than ever. So I mean, that is frustration. Is this squad good enough to win the league? Yes. Would this squad win the league in probably about 15 plus of the Premier League seasons that we've had preceding? Yes, it would have won it. This year, who knows? Because it's really tight and tough. And I think John as said, the key thing really, it will to some extent probably come down to who gets the worst injury crisis and when. We are going to have to ride out that Mo and Sadio, possibly Naby less period with the Africa Cup of
And let's
Nations.
hope
So,
they don't get injured in the African Cup of Nations, because that happens to so many Liverpool players when they go on international duty.
yeah. So yes, I think they're as good. That was a long answer. Yes, as good, possibly better. Will we win the league? Maybe not.
Okay, all right. Have you got any tattoos, Benny?
No.
No, okay. We had what's her name? How do you say it, John? The tattoo.
Olfo.
She's from Holland or
Oh,
Netherlands, whatever you call it these
yes,
days.
from the
Yeah.
Netherlands, yeah.
And she was on Red All Over YouTube a couple of episodes ago with a book that she's got, which is people all over the world have sent her photographs of their Liverpool tattoos. She's the mascot. She wears the mascot suit for the Dutch national side. And so she was quite a character when we had her on. She was quite fun. She's got every word of "You'll Never Walk Alone" tattooed on her somewhere. It's broken up all round, and she showed us a few bits, didn't she? And when she was on, we had a contest, didn't we, John, to win her book?
Yeah.
You got the winner there, then. You got the winner to announce tonight.
The winner, the book is going to be released next Thursday at the TIA in Liverpool, Hotel Tier.
Yeah.
So I'm going along to collect the book, and the winner for us is Roger Clegg. Now,
congratulations, Roger.
He's got a tattoo, I believe, that depicts both Heysel and Hillsborough. And and Kim thought that was wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. We have people sending in ones of the European Cups, the Liver Birds, and all that, but that one meant something. So yeah, that's in the book. That's now. Sorry, it's not in the book. That's the one that's won the book. So Roger, I'll be getting that book to you.
Brilliant.
And
okay.
Kim's great. I've met Kim on.
You've met Kim.
We have various because Kim's involved with another international supporters club, so we have regular phone calls with the people who run the supporters clubs all over the world. And Kim's on there. She's just such a kind of breath of fresh. She's just very upbeat, positive, smiling.
Yeah.
When you're talking, she's very present and nodding. So yeah, I'm gonna blow her a kiss if she is watching. I'll send her a link.
I hope she's watching.
I'll send her a link to make sure she does watch.
Yeah, so she gets the kiss. That's good.
Yeah. And all those supporters clubs that you have contact with, Benny, tell them to start subscribing to Red All Over the Land. We need people to subscribe to keep it going, and we're doing our best.
Because you've had problems with sales at the ground since the new ticketing system on your phones came in, haven't you, John? Is that getting any better?
No, that's getting better, but we've met another obstacle the last 2 home games, and it's called the weather.
Okay.
So when they're talking about climate change, I'm just hoping that we can have a few nice days, to sell the fans in. That's the only climate change I'm interested in. Yeah.
I looked at the forecast today, and it said for Saturday it's going to be a bit milder. So
that's good. Yeah.
For the Villa game.
I got one from Steve who sells, and he said it looks horrendous. So we'll see.
What kind of reception do you think Stevie G's going to get? It'll be a nice one, won't it? We're going to get the Stevie G chants and everything on Saturday.
I think we'll give him a welcome before the game. Once the ball is kicked, then he's the enemy. And it's the first time in my life I want Stevie G to be on the losing side. That's it. That's all I'm saying on the matter.
Yeah. And before we talk to Benny a bit more. What's this new supporters board that's been announced? I think it was yesterday or the day before that the Liverpool FC, the business of Liverpool FC with the owners Fenway, that they're now going to have a supporters board. Do you know anything about that, John?
Very little, only what I've read today. It's something that's been set up, I think, in conversation with supporters groups such as the Spirit of Shankly and various other groups. And it is to give the board, the people, I don't think you call them a board now, the people that run Liverpool Football Club, more of an insight to what supporters want. If you go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, football was run by family organisations. The Moores brothers, the Moores family at Liverpool, Bob Lord, a Busher at Burnley, people like that. So you knew who was who. Now, in my eyes, the people at the top end of Liverpool are faceless people. We don't see them. I tried very hard when FSG came in to make contact with them. They walked past me several times when I was selling. I got a look from Tom Werner, and I said, I used to watch Happy Days, but he, but they didn't respond. None of them do now, and that to me is a sad thing. But hopefully, this supporters organisation, that it includes quite a lot of groups, and I'm sure Benny can mention it as well. It's time we went back to that, where we can actually have a voice. I've said this before, that I think it was 1998. I went to a meeting at Anfield on a night. I met with Rick Parry, and there were several other people there. And he said he just wanted to get the fans involved. And from that meeting onwards, we started the mosaics. We started plenty of other little things going on, our penalty shootouts. And it was, but then when Rick went, I tried to get in touch with his replacement. I think that was Christian Purslow. Well, I used to call him Mr. Christian because you never saw him anyway. And then Ian said, "Oh, I'll meet with you definitely. Come along and meet with you." And then I got an email the day of the meeting. "Oh, can't make it today." So with in the past, it was a case of I'd ring the club secretary and say, "Can I come and meet with Brian Hall, Rick Parry, and a few others?" And yeah, it was there, done, no problem. It was just, and the coffee was always ready. So yeah, you're always there. You're always able to meet with them and talk to them. Now it's moved on, but we're talking about billionaires. We're not talking about people who had a bit of money in the bank. We're talking about.
Do you mean you didn't get to meet Hicks and Gillette when they were there, John?
No, surprisingly, no. Well, as we might mention later, I don't know if Brian does mention it, but Brian Barwick did meet them. So, and he had to tell them. He had to tell them what football was about. I don't think it registered. So.
What would you like to tell them, Benny, as running a supporters club? What would you if you could have some say in the running of the club? What do you think they need to know?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because as official supporters clubs, we do, and there are, I think, about 315 official Liverpool supporters clubs globally now. There's obviously lots more small, independent, non-official ones that exist as well. But so we do have a kind of voice into the club via the supporters club liaison team. So we have had meetings with Billy Hogan, Drew Crisp. I'm trying to think who else. So we do kind of have that network and have an opportunity to voice our kind of opinion to them, and there will be a representative from the official Liverpool Supporters Club network, the international network. There will be a representative on that new supporters board, as there will from Kop Outs, I believe, the Disabled Supporters Association as well. So I think it's a really positive thing. I think it's sort of, it seems to me, what it strikes me is it's really sort of embedding the fan voice within the structures of the club. So anything that's kind of fan experience related, there's going to be a much stronger consultation. My understanding, and I've sort of kept a bit of an eye on it, and I'm not sure if all the detail is exactly ironed out yet, but there will be sort of powers to vote and veto certain things. So like moving from Anfield or changing the kit colour or anything crazy
or
like
European
that.
Super League.
Yes, or European Super League, there would be a lot more weight. And obviously Spirit of Shankly, which is I think an amazing organisation and official kind of supporters group for Liverpool. I think they've done some amazing negotiating to get the thing to where it is. And I think they're going to have, it's largely going to be representative from the Spirit of Shankly that sit on that board, but in a way they've been the voice for a very long time. And I think they've done a very good job on many issues for fans. I mean, it in terms of what would I want to say to them, I don't know. I mean, I know it always divides opinion, doesn't it? But I'm personally, I'm very happy with FSG. I think we could have a lot worse owners. We have had a lot worse owners the previous lot prior to them. Look, no football club owner in this modern era is ever going to get everything right. They promised to do something with the stadium, and they are doing that, and that's no mean feat. I know other clubs have built new stadiums, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted to stay where we were, and they've honoured that agreement and done the work to build that up around in the Anfield area, which I think's fantastic. I don't think they've got a huge amount wrong in the transfer market. Every club will make mistakes. I mean, look at our friends over Stanley Park. They've spent a fortune and got it horribly wrong. So, and they got us the best manager in the world, in my opinion. So, and we've won a European Cup and a league since they came in, which is no mean feat in this competitive environment, considering we don't play around with we don't mess around with financial fair play. There is a sustainable financial model there. And again, I personally would rather win the league knowing we've done it in a financially sustainable way with some integrity than spend a load of bloody money and chuck money at it. Okay, yeah, you can win the league. It doesn't feel like it's got the same level of integrity as our winning the league. Now, obviously, I'm massively biased, but I think, if I were watching it from the outside and I was a genuine neutral, I'd say that's pretty impressive, actually, that Liverpool have done that with a relatively, almost net neutral spend, actually. So I think they're great. I think FSG, they have a lot to answer to, as we need to hold all of our owners and leaders to account, and we can find things that they're doing wrong, and the £77 ticket and stuff like that, but they have also backtracked on stuff, which isn't overly common at that level of business. People who've got that amount of money and power tend to just bulldoze through. They have made some mistakes. They've heard the feedback and they've U-turned and backtracked. And we're all human. If you can make a mistake and say, all right, we got it, that's wrong, and turn that around, I think that's honourable.
Nice if a few politicians learn that lesson as well.
It would be great. Yeah.
No, John, I think I cut you off. What were you about to say?
No, I think FSG have done brilliantly. They did make mistakes on the European Super League, but I also think there's other things going on in football that we're not party to, and they have to think of the future. I mean, this season we're starting getting 3:00 kickoffs again, and I think there's something happened in the past where. I think this is the first time in 15 years we've had 3 successive 3:00 kickoffs on a Saturday. That's just think that's unique. But these are things that maybe the fans can actually start telling the Premier League, the people who govern the game, this is what we want. And if what Liverpool are doing now, it's fantastic. And yeah, Benny's right. We don't go out there and spend hundreds of millions on players. I mean, I'd sooner see Tyler Morton come in and gradually become a great player.
Like Stevie did.
Yeah, exactly like Stevie Gerrard did. I'm not going to say he's going to achieve anything like Stevie did, but on a personal level, that is. But I mean, why you've got to have patience. And I know people have said to me, why aren't we buying? And they'll name a player, and I said, well, maybe he's not actually available. It's you can't just go if you want a player, club's got to want to sell that player. It doesn't work like a lot of people think, that you just say, right, pick a player from any other club in the league, we want him, we'll buy him. It doesn't work like that. So I'm 100% in agreement with Benny that if we win the league and we've got this, we've not spent massively, then fine. We're spending a lot more money than some clubs like Burnley or something like that. We can do that, but that's because of what we are. We've worked to get where we are.
And the money we're bringing in, it's about that net spend thing, isn't it? And people often overlook that. And you're saying that a player has to be available before a club can buy them. Also, some clubs have got a player that they can't offload, because I think Coutinho, they're trying to get rid of him and no one seems to be biting. But I'd take him back on a free. He'd probably sit on the bench, but I wouldn't mind having him on the bench. They'd hand him back for nothing. I'd take him.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah,
he ain't getting in the starting lineup, but
all right.
But he funded Alisson and Van Dijk though, didn't he? So that's great.
He did. Yeah. No regrets on that.
Yeah. Well, let's find out more about you, Benny Punk from Brighton Kop. Tell us about Brighton Kop. How did it all... Brighton Kop. How did it all get started?
Well, there's certainly a lot of Brighton pop goes on as well, but I'm less involved. I'm less involved in these days. Well, it started. I mean, so that we recognise our birthday officially, because you always have to pick a date, don't you? So we started our Facebook group on March the 20th, 2014. I want to say, yeah, 2014. But it was interesting when I did the interview for the fanzine for Red All Over the Land. It got me really thinking. And Mark, who interviewed me and wrote the article, was really, let's do some of that. Let's do some product placement.
There it is. Yeah.
So Mark got me really thinking, and I think the genesis of it was I was up in London when it was the 2012 League Cup final. I think it was Cardiff, wasn't it? And I was up there for some event, and I wanted to nip out and watch the game. And I was in Euston, so I went to a pub near Euston Station. And obviously, a lot of Liverpool fans had travelled down to London, and that it just happened that pub I walked into near Euston Station was full of Liverpool fans, singing, chanting, having a right old merry old time. And I think something dropped. I think a penny dropped of like, oh, so you could do this in pubs. You know, obviously the pubs around Anfield, you kind of expect that close and around to the ground. But here was this group of Liverpool fans in a pub in London, sort of took it over and really.
That sounds like Liverpool fans is like they come out of Euston Station on the train from Lime Street and go in the first pub, the nearest pub.
That was the pub I walked into, and it made me realise. You know, because if you go to pubs away from stadiums, generally speaking, people sit down, they'll be watching the game, having a chat. They might cheer and jump up when a goal goes in, and they'll sit back down and carry on with their mates. And something must have sunk in. And I think I started that next season, which was 13-14 season when we nearly won the league. I was going around at the first part of the season to various different pubs, not with any great intention, but just noticing every time Liverpool scored, there were people in each of the pubs jumping up and having a thing. So I'd go and speak to them and have a chat. And I was like, why don't we try and get everyone into one venue? Why don't we see if that's possible? I don't know how many there are, but it seems like there's a good smattering of Liverpool fans down in Brighton. So we just set up a Facebook group. To begin with, I wrote, little scraps of paper and wrote the Facebook thing down and just chased people around the street. If I saw a Liverpool shirt or anything Liverpool, sometimes my husband would be like that, and he'd see me off in the distance chasing somebody in a Liverpool shirt because I wanted to get people in. So we picked a venue and we just started to gather people up. And I think by the end of the 13-14 season, we probably were getting like 30-40 people in the pub, which was great. And we made a thing of standing, and then we made a thing of starting to chant, and then we started gradually putting one or two flags up. And then over time, over the next couple of seasons, when we got to that Europa League final, the entire pub was packed full of Liverpool fans. There were flags all across the entire pub. And I think we had about 400 or so people in. I think it was one in, one out. So it's kind of like,
is it always the same pub, or is it do you pick different pubs for different matches?
Well, we've always had a partner venue, and that has changed. So we were at one venue for a few years, and then we moved to we took on a nightclub. So we had it our own private use, but we had to pay for the Sky and BT, which was a nightmare financially. So we did a year at a nightclub, and now we're at a pub in the centre of Brighton called the Font. So that's where we're based now, and it's quite nice. It's kind of it's an old church actually, but quite a small one. It's got this kind of U-shaped, horseshoe-shaped kind of feel to it. So the upstairs is all horseshoe-shaped. It's got a row of pews up on the higher level, on the mezzanine level, and then a bar downstairs. So it means we can get all the flags up and around. So it still has that atmosphere. And I think the key thing for me was there was two things. I wanted it to be different. I wanted people to stand together and sing and chant and joke. We jokingly called it the Brighton Kop as an aspirational. We want it to be like the Kop, where everyone's, in the old days, everyone would stand and sing and chant and have all that kind of banter. And that was one aim, that we did that differently. We weren't just going to sit around and be all on our own. It was about bringing people together. And that was when I got to the nub of it, really, it was about building community and friendship through this vehicle of football. We've got this common love of Liverpool, but we're all from very, very different backgrounds. We've got a very diverse group of people. Brighton's quite a diverse place, and it was about actually just getting everyone together, forgetting what our differences might be and our different political views, or our race, or our sexual orientation, or our gender, or any of that, and just having that shared love of Liverpool. And then, of course, what happens is you stick with those people because you're watching 1 or 2 games a week with them. And then over time, you start to get to know these people. And where there might have been some more natural barriers or less obvious kinship between people, that's all dissolving in the background because you've got used to spending time with these people. So it's actually proved to be a really interesting kind of community development project. I don't think that's what I intended to start when I first started it, but I very quickly realized that was what was going to happen, and made that front and center. So our vision, our strap line, it's on our scarves, and I think it's building community and friendship through football, because I think that's
because inclusivity is very important to Brighton Kop, isn't it? That came across in the interview I read in Read All Over the Land.
Yeah, I think it is very important, and it's not, football environments can be very difficult places for a lot of people. It's generally speaking, or historically, has been a much more male kind of dominated environment, because of what it is. And I don't want to do away with this, by the way. There can often be a lot of sort of swearing and shouting, and what can seem like quite boisterous behaviour. And I think that's okay that's important and good. But what we noticed is that when we started running it and doing it the way we were getting a lot more, quite a high percentage of women were coming in. And I've had lots of conversations with people who said, I would never have come unless it was organised in the way it is, and you weren't doing, because you're doing the messaging around inclusion and it being for everyone and people feeling safe in the space. It meant a lot of people started coming that perhaps wouldn't. And that includes, we've got a relatively large LGBT contingent, again, being in Brighton, that's sort of to be expected. We have had transgender members who come along to the groups and things. So yeah, I think feeling safe and inclusive for everyone is vital. And the minute it stops being that, we've got something wrong. And if there was a move towards, we don't care about all that, we just want to do whatever we want to do and sod everyone else, and I'm done. I'm not being involved in it, and I will fight to keep it inclusive, because football isn't for everyone. We like to say it is, but it's been a very homophobic environment in my experience. Not really not at Liverpool or Anfield, compared to a lot of places, but just as a general thing, I think being LGBT plus can be difficult to engage in a lot of sporting environments, really, and football's certainly one of those. So we wanted to make sure it was really clear: you come and be yourself, you be you, and you've got a place here. And if actually what's happened is we've had some people who don't like it or think we're too right on or too PC, and they've had a tantrum and stropped off, and I'm like, good, that's fine, you've got plenty of other places you can go. We're doing it our way here, so you either come and do it our way or sling your hook, basically. But we leave the door open. Anyone can come back. I've had people have tantrums and then realise they love it and come back and toe the line. So
how many members have you got then?
Well, it's difficult to say exactly, because our membership structure has changed a bit because of COVID and everything. So we're just doing a registration period for the second half of the season. At the moment, we're at about 400 registered members. We certainly have a lot more than that around the edges. I did some work on because we do our events properly, like we do them through Eventbrite, just so we know how many are coming for the staff at the venue and things like that. So we've had over 700 different people come through the doors at our venues already this season. We've got 1,800 in our Facebook group, and we vet them all for local connection and Liverpool supporting. So it's difficult to say exactly, but a lot, definitely over 1,000 people will go through the doors at our events this year.
Wow. You mentioned numbers and one in and one out. Does that mean people have to book to go to the match at your venue at the Font?
So when I mentioned the one in, one out, that was for the big games. Like
what I'm thinking is, if there's a Liverpool fan who finds himself in Brighton on a match day and is looking for somewhere, can they just show up at the Font and get in?
Yeah, if they turn up and say I'm from Liverpool, and they clearly are, we let them in. I mean, well, you do. I mean, because that would be incredibly rude and not in the spirit at all of what we're doing. We just have to manage the capacity for safety and things like that. So we do have free tickets through Eventbrite. So we don't charge people, but they register their tickets through Eventbrite, and that means they've got their space.
Yeah.
Because when you get to the big games, we do reach capacity where we can't fit anybody in. We have the entire upstairs of that pub. So people can come in and be downstairs, but everyone wants to be upstairs where all the atmosphere and the chanting and stuff is happening. So yeah, if anyone is watching and is from Liverpool, and if anyone ever turns up who's from out of town, just go to the welcome desk and say, Benny said it's all right.
Okay, all right.
Actually, the welcome desk people will be watching this now. No, you have to contact me in advance. We have to find a way of messaging us, but we would always let out of towners.
How do they contact how do people contact Brighton Kop? Because there might be some people from Brighton watching that didn't know it exists.
Yeah, so we've got a website which is the BrightonKop.com. We are going to change that at some point soon because we are Brighton and Sussex. That was the sort of legacy thing from when we were just Brighton in the beginning. But if people just info@thebrightonkop.com for email. We've got Liverpool Supporters Club Brighton and Sussex on Facebook. You can message us through that. That's like an open page, community page on Facebook. So those are the two main ways. And there is a contact us form on the website if you really can't remember the email, work it out.
Or you could always get in touch with John at Red All Over the Land, and he'll pass you details on, especially if you're a Red All Over the Land subscriber. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
what are your plans for March the 12th when Liverpool play in Brighton?
Well, we're currently working on a plan. I mean, the challenge with everything at the moment is where are we going to be at with this bloody pandemic? Because it looks like this Omicron thing. Yeah, it looks like Boris has just done another announcement. It looks like things might be edging towards some kind of
plan
restrictions
B.
again.
Yeah.
So if all is well, and of course the other challenge is by that stage of the season, the TV companies release the fixtures very late, so we don't exactly know when the game is. But the plan,
might not be March 12th. Okay, right.
Provisional plan as things stand is we'll have the Anfield wrap down to do a live show probably on the Friday night
right.
at a venue somewhere in Brighton. We've done that with them. I think we've done a couple of those with them before. So yeah, we'll have them down to do some kind of live show. If the match is on TV and it's on the Saturday, what we'll probably do is hire a bigger venue. So there's the Arch nightclub in Brighton where we did the Champions League final. We'll get all the equipment in and we'll probably show the match at a bigger venue like that, so we can get many more people in. And the guys at the Anfield Wrap basically going to be around all weekend. I mean, we're sort of talking about them coming back and doing something after the game and then having some DJs, some live music and stuff. So we have to sort of be a bit nimble with the planning because you don't know when things are going to get moved. So, but we'll be doing a weekend of stuff. We did last time people could travel and were down. We did a pre-match thing. We did a post-match music event, and we had the Anfield wrap down on the Friday night then. So we tend to go for it and make it a proper away day for people.
Right. All right. So that will be a big day.
John, you're coming, aren't you? James Hadlock tells me you're coming down.
I was going to say that we'd like to come down, and I know Graham as well.
Because I live in Hitchin in Hertfordshire, and I can get on a train here that goes all the way to Brighton.
Great.
And maybe we could even do a Red All Over the Land show with you. So get Mark Pitt out there, and and make him earn his free copy. So we'd love to come down and be part of it, and maybe do something on a charity basis. We can sort something out. We've got 3 months. And the good thing is, I'm that weekend I'm actually thinking of going away. I was hoping to go to Spain, but I don't know now because of obviously things you've just mentioned. But coming down to Brighton would be a great start to my week holiday, and we could do something. Whether we could get Alan Green to come down, I don't know, but we could get something. It was great. Alan actually might still be on holiday himself. But we could get something organised where we can do something, get a few people involved and have a good, real good night. And we could do, Graham could do this. We could do interviews where we can then put them on this platform that we're hoping will expand in the new year. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of things, and I really do appreciate I appreciate your time tonight and the time you and Mark spent doing the interview. But there's a lot of things that I'd like to think the fanzine can get involved with, and the last obviously 12, 18 months have not been easy. But we got involved with the Florrie. We can get involved with yourselves. It's that can happen, and it's just a one-off event. Unless of course we play them in the FA Cup or something. It's a one-off event, and it can be good fun. But you're right about the television. You don't know. Yeah, I mean, we could even end up with a Monday night game. It's that odd the way they are. But
I think if people are coming down for the weekend, which I think a lot of people are willing and prepared to do that, if they know we're going to be doing stuff, and we'd love to have as many people involved as possible. Really, this is about, this is us in action. This is about bringing that extended community and family of Liverpool fans, who are coming down. We always say we're sort of 270 miles from the mothership, but we are here, and we're very active. We're a very warm, welcoming supporters club, and I haven't mentioned, I don't know, might be able to put a link under the thing. We did actually have a film made about us, I think it was 2017 it was released. So it was a guy that got involved in our supporters club, came through mutual friends, and he's actually a filmmaker and a very talented one at that. When he said, "Can I make a film?" I was thinking yeah, okay. I was thought he'd come around with a little handheld camera and stuff, and he starts turning up with full film crews and lighting and doing hours and hours of interviews. So he eventually managed to get the Guardian on board, so they provided some resource support like illustrators and composers and stuff. So he's made this fantastic short film about us. It is a bit more in the early days, so things have moved on a bit for us since then. But
email me a link to it, Benny, and anyone watching the recorded version of this, I'll put it in the blurb down below on YouTube. Yeah.
Because what we got from that was a lot of, like Jurgen mentioned us in his press conference ahead of that Brighton game. We released it, I think, the day before the first game when Brighton were back in the Premier League, and Jurgen, it got put in front of Jurgen. He mentioned it in the press conference, and Peter Moore. It was really well received. And what was most, I think I felt most proud of was that, reading lots of Liverpool, very heavily, Kelly Cates and people, it was people are very embedded either in the football club or in Liverpool as a city, spoke very highly of it and said, this is something to be really proud of. This is an extension. This shows you what this football club is about. And that for me is, if we get nothing else, that's the ultimate accolade, that, the kind of people who commented in the way they did made it feel like we kind of got this right. We were doing it in the right way that was aligned with Liverpool Football Club. And I think the city of Liverpool, really, I love Liverpool as a city. It's the only place other than Brighton I've ever considered living in the UK. And that, and I think,
it's cheaper than living in Brighton.
Bloody right it would. I've just bought a flat down here. It's ridiculous. But it's something about that spirit. Brighton is a very different place. I know it's down south and people can have a view about down south, but Brighton is quite different although it's very close to London, it's got a very different feel and vibe to it. And I think, I've sort of feel a kinship with Liverpool and Brighton. So it's nice that, we've kind of, it feels like we've got a lot right in terms of how we're doing things, and people are recognising that. So.
Yeah.
So what we'd do is we could come down on the match day and make it even more real and sell fanzines outside.
Yeah, like a proper match day. Yeah.
Yeah. Get one of our top sales reps down.
We'll get cheeky Jurgen down as well. Get him.
You never know. Never know. Cheeky Jurgen might
believe
show.
you me, that's possible.
Yeah.
That's not possible. That's a certainty if he's available. Yeah.
Well,
right.
What did you say the guy's name was that made the film?
Ruben Armstrong.
Ruben Armstrong. I only say that because we've had one of the comments is from Craig Films Inc. And I was wondering if he had any connection. And he just says hi. And also Steve Wilson, ex-presidente from Austin, Texas. He's watching right now in Austin, Texas. He wishes us all a happy holiday season up the Reds, he says. So just a couple of nice mentions there. Yeah. All right. Well, Benny, it's been great talking to you. And I hope you can stick around, and you might enjoy this next thing we've got, which is Brian Barwick. If you don't know who Brian Barwick is, he's got a great book out. John, you sent me the book, and it's called 60 Years of Red and Counting. And so he writes it as a Liverpool football fan. But he was the editor of Match of the Day. He was in charge of sport at the BBC. He was the head of sport. He was also the controller of ITV Sport. He's a former chief executive of the Football Association. He still writes columns and stuff in the Echo. And he was going to be on live tonight. So we did a test. He wasn't sure about the tech, was he, John? He was a bit like yourself. No. And we did a test on Friday night. And I don't know, for whatever reason, he decided he wanted to record it then. And then at the end of it, something happened that we couldn't recreate. So we've decided that because we all of a sudden did an accidental interview, didn't we, John? He said he wanted to do it then, and we weren't really prepped for it, apart from we've read his book. And so we said, oh, we'll do this. Now, to set this up, you were having computer problems, weren't you, John?
Yes, my faithful, trusted friend, my PC, decided to pass away. So,
like days before the new issue of Red All Over the Land had to be done. So it was at a crucial point. Yeah.
And I was getting a bit frustrated with things. Anyway, they'll spoil the story if I told you everything. But yeah, we needed someone to come and try and fix my computer.
That was one of the things when Brian Barwick said, "Can we do the interview now?" You said, "Well, I'm going to have to make a phone call because there's a bloke coming round to fix my computer in a bit."
That's right.
And you put him back, and so
I did.
So we went ahead anay. Do we need to say any more, John, before I roll this?
No. Let it go. Let it go.
Okay, here we go. This is This is Brian Barwick from Friday night over YouTube. Brian Barwick, how are you?
I'm very well, actually. Thank you. I'm delighted to be talking to you guys.
Now, for those who don't know, you have an illustrious career on the BBC and BBC Sport, also ITV Sport as well. But you are a Red, and your book's called 60 Years of Red and Counting. How did you first become a Red?
Well, we're going back to 1961 here, and my first memory of being at Anfield is October 1961, a game between Liverpool and Leyton Orient, which was actually in the second division. Liverpool were top of the second division then, and Leyton Orient were second. And in fact, that's where they ended up. And quite bizarrely, Liverpool's history went through the roof, and Leyton Orient went back down all the divisions again. So you never know when your first match is, because you might have been taken in your pram, but that's the one. I've got a brother who's older than me, and he says that's when we went with my dad to the first game. And in fact, we went to Goodison as well. So I have no idea quite how we landed in as a Red rather than the blue, given the fact that Everton were in the first division then and about to become the league champions in 62-63, and Liverpool definitely weren't. But anyway, that's how it started. And it's been a lifetime's association.
Straight that Leyton Orient side were actually quite useful, weren't they? Because I believe that they drew that game, and then Liverpool did the draw both games that season with them. And in my collection, I've got the very small programme from the away game that's about that size. You could fit it in your top.
Yeah, so have I. Yeah, so have I.
And wasn't
if I widen this shot, John, you'd be staggered at what my background is, because I've got about 200 books on Liverpool. I've got every programme from about 1950, 55 something, to about 2005, and then it fell away a bit. But I'll come back to it. That's how I'll sort of spend the next 10 years picking up and getting them back. But no, I remember that little programme. And I've still got the programme from the game that I went, and it was 3-3. And Roger Hunt scored twice. So the first goal I ever saw scored for Liverpool was by the great Sir Roger. And the equaliser right at the end of the game was Tom Leishman, who sadly left us recently. So, that's my memory of the first game. I think you've got to put your flagpole in the ground somewhere, and that's where I put it. And off we go then, really.
And wasn't the Leyton Orient manager Johnny Carey, who'd left Everton? and been
Yeah,
replaced
via a
by
taxi.
Patrick.
Yeah, yeah, it was Johnny Carey. And they had guys like Dave Dunmore up front. I don't remember that guy. I mean, they had a
remember
good
him.
team.
Yeah.
And obviously they had a good team because I'm not sure they went from 4 to 1, but they definitely went from 1 back to 4.
You certainly did.
And Northampton were another team that did. I remember seeing Liverpool play Northampton. I think I've seen Liverpool play Northampton twice. Once in about 1965 when they'd come from the 4th to the 1st. And I think Liverpool won 5-0 and they went back down again, down those divisions. And the next time I saw them was when they beat us in whatever the issue was of the League Cup about 5 or 6, 7 years ago, and they won on penalty. So, hey, we're digressing.
Of course, I remember going to Northampton's ground at that time because it was also one of the 2 grounds in the Football League that doubled as a cricket ground.
It's only had 3 sides, yeah.
Yeah. And they used to have people standing along the touchline as if you're down on some village green. Football then to football now. It's
Correct.
changed.
Correct.
But I found in your book what I loved really was the stories of those, because each chapter is a year, isn't it? And it's the
idea of it really,
some great years, not many bad years.
The idea of it was a simple one really, that 61 and 21 is a sort of 60-year breadth, and I thought I could write the equivalent of a 1,500-word essay on every season, and a lot of it because I knew a lot about it. I'd been at the events. There was a period, obviously, when professionally I was very involved in football and very involved in Liverpool, and I just knew the people as well as the statistics. And I made it my business to write 2 chapters a week, which was 1 day research, 1 day write, and then 1 day rewrite. And then every 10 seasons that I did, I'd then send them to Dave Ball and Jed Rea, who are the Liverpool FC's statsmen, nice people, and they'd pick up on any errors. And of course there were a few, but there weren't as many as you might have thought, actually. And then I had people say, well, who's written it for you? Well, here's the thing. It's 91,000 words and I wrote them. And at the end of every season, we put a thing called Kop That, where I asked Jed and Dave to come up with a stat, an interesting stat in a way, and that's all. And it's come together really nicely as a book. I think the pictures are good. I love the cover. They're the bits that I spent quite a lot of time choosing the pictures because I'm old school. You know, if I go into a bookshop, I will always look at the cover and then look at the pictures and then decide whether I want to buy it or not. And Liverpool has been covered so vastly over the years in print that trying to do something different with it is a challenge if you're not playing for them and you're a current player or a former player. So I thought that was a good concept in the fact that 60 years ran the way they did. Each of them I tried to have a story within it which was individual to that season. And then with the pictures, it was a case of trying to use the pictures that probably hadn't been used at the time because there was a better picture for the story then, but wouldn't necessarily be a better story, a better picture, given that you're looking back 30, 40, 50 years. So, and I've been gratified by the reception the books have, because I think it is, well, it's a decent bit of work, if nothing else. You know, never mark your own homework, but it's authentic, it's real, it's quite emotional at times, and it is a thorough history of the club, I think.
I agree with you. I agree, and of course you cover it. You cover it as a real supporter, somebody who was there. We call it the beginning, don't we? But it's the beginning of the history from the 60s. I mean, obviously there was histories in the 20s. Well, there was history from day one, but there was history in the 20s. There was history in the 40s. There was the relegation. But with Shankly arriving, then it became it's the new history, and it's just been it's continued. It's an amazing story, and what I like about your book is it captures each season, and it reminded me of things like don't like to talk about them as the previous owners because we know what they were. They've got a few other nicknames, but you actually had to go and explain to them, didn't you? What it was about? Was that then when you were telling them about what Liverpool Football Club meant?
Yeah, I mean, when I was at the FA, I had to do a fair bit of that because there were more and more foreign owners coming into the game, and whilst the Premier League would make sure that they were commercially sound and all the rest, I thought the FA had a different role, which was to talk about the history and heritage of the game, not just Liverpool, of the game. But no, that you're right about it starting. It started for me in 61, 62, which was very useful. I didn't know at 7 years of age I'd write the book, but it was useful as a device because you are able to puff your chest out, and I've done it many times. I said, when people say who do you support? Say Liverpool. People say, oh, well, you would, wouldn't you? And I always say, yeah, I saw them when they were in the second division. And most people, and why would they? Why would they know or care that Liverpool were in the second division, and they were in the second division for a good while, relegated in 54 and back in it for 62. So that was a tough time for the Reds. And of course, Shankly was the lightning conductor, really. It was just remarkable. I mean, I say in the book, I used to go to Melwood during half-term holidays, and you could go and watch the team train. They'd let the first 20 guys in, and you're a young schoolboy, and you're able to. There was no commercial or sponsorship angle to it. You just happened to be there early and got in, and you were 10 yards away from watching the players doing their five-a-sides and such like. And Shankly always would come out and have a conversation with you, and you hung on his every word. And, you used to go home and your mum would say, "What have you been doing?" I've been at Melwood and spoke to Shanks. I said, "Oh, what did he say?" Don't think Roger Hunt's going to be fit for Saturday. you had a scoop before anybody else did, and he was just a remarkable character. And I had the opportunity when I was at Liverpool University. I went to a law society monthly guest speaker spot, and I had nothing to do with law outside of just trying to stay on the right side of it. And it was interesting because you could tell that the Law Society would have expected a High Court judge or somebody to come and talk, but we're a little bit dismissive for the first 10 minutes. And by the end of the hour, they absolutely were eating out of Shanks' hand because of the style of his oratory was just unbelievable. And in a very significant way to me, in a small way to the rest of the nation, a lot of what I've taken forward as leadership qualities, if indeed I have any, a lot of them have come from that era of listening to how Shankly talked to people, how he was committed, and therefore they were committed, and how he believed in something, therefore they believe in it. And so an amazing character, and of course Jurgen Klopp in a way I describe as they are the perfect bookends for the book, actually, because you start with Shanks and you end with Klopp, and they're very similar in many ways. I think Shanks, if you cut him in half, there'd be football running right through his veins. I think with Klopp, he's just maybe have a wider interest in life as well as football. He's brilliant, but both of them have that same thing of being able to engage with the footballers under their guise, and also absolutely understand the public and how to work with the public and be part of the public.
How did you get Jamie Carragher to write the foreword in the book?
Well, Jamie, I've just got to know down the years because he was in the England squad for a while, and also when he first started in television, I rang him up out the blue, really, or out the red. And I just gave him a couple of tips, because my background was, I was the editor of Match of the Day for about 8 years. I was the head of sport at the BBC. I was the controller of sport at ITV. I'd done a lot of this stuff. I understand what I'm doing. I understand how broadcasters work and what they're looking for, and especially in football television. I probably ticked a lot of the boxes, and I gave him 2 tips, really. And one was to not hit every ball for 6. What I meant by that was every time you open your mouth, you don't have to make a headline, because then you run out of headlines. And I've seen pundits do that. I've seen it down the years. I've seen in 6 months' time, you'll have run out of things to say. And then the other thing I said to him, I said, you should ask for, everybody should have something that they can refer to that may be different. And for me then, it was about real-time replays, because so much was slowed down and analysed. In truth, the game isn't played in slow motion. And therefore, so I gave him just a couple of tips. And funny enough, somebody pointed me in the direction of YouTube the other week, a channel service I don't often go on, and Gary Neville was doing this thing, walking down the street with Jamie. I think that it was a Gary Neville thing, who, by the way, I also gave it their first break into television.
It's your fault.
On ITV, it is my fault in many ways. And Gary said, what's the best bit of advice you've had? And he said it came from Brian Barwick about not hitting every ball for 6. So I'm sure he was talking about his broadcast career, not his football career. So no, very kind of him to do it, very kind of him to put his name to it, and yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned working for the FA as well, and John, you're disappointed that the FA Cup isn't as prestigious as it once was, aren't you?
Well, I just think that I suppose it's to do with television, but there's a time when the FA Cup captured everybody's imagination, and as you refer to in the book, like the 3rd round cup draw, it was in December, and I used to rush home from school, or later years I would take my transistor radio into work so I could listen to the cup draw, and it seemed everybody wanted to know who was playing who. Even people who weren't interested in football wanted to know who was playing who. And there was something about it when it was like listening to something in a cellar, because they'd shake the balls and they'd make the draw, and then it'd be almost silence. Number 1 will play number 44. Things like that. It was amazing, and you were hooked. And I can remember the very first FA Cup game I went to watch, and that was my dad's the place my dad worked. They had a football team called Brush Sports, and they were playing Hinckley Athletic at Browns Lane in Loughborough, and it was if it wasn't the first qualifying round, it was the prelim qualifying round. It was about 1956, 57. There were over 2,000 there. Well, you get some games down the 3rd round, they don't get 2,000. And it's upsetting. People say, oh, it's only the FA Cup. The FA Cup was bigger in the 60s. The FA Cup was bigger than the European Cup to an English football fan. Maybe not to a Real Madrid football fan, because that was a different setup. But to an English football fan, the FA Cup was the major trophy, the only trophy worth winning. You wanted to win that. You have a shot at the league every year, but the FA Cup, it was just something else. It was special, and a team could play the 3rd round of the FA Cup. 2 teams in the 1st division or 2nd division, it wasn't them days, and the gate would be twice the number from the previous week's league game. And I can remember, again, my father taking me to watch Leicester City reserves play Bournemouth reserves in, I think it was 1960, because my dad had no interest in football, but his mate at work wanted a voucher, which would get him a ticket to watch a Leicester City quarter-final. And So he went. We all went over to watch Leicester City reserves on a Saturday afternoon. So my dad could get his mate a voucher, and I'd get a voucher as well, so they could have that. And there's 27,000 there for a reserve game against Bournemouth. You know, it's just yeah, the actual tie that was covered was Leicester versus West Bromwich Albion, and I believe there was something happened at half time. I believe the referee actually passed away. So it was, and the game was continued. The game was played out, but it was the FA Cup meant everything to everyone, and I do know that when we first had a television, my mother invited the neighbours round to watch it. The only thing my dad watched on the FA Cup was Abide With Me, because that was his thing. He was a brass bandsman. But yeah, the FA Cup had an interest to everybody, and you watched it. You watched it from the moment it came on the air to the moment it went off the air, and you were hooked. And then you'd go out on the street the following day and replay the final.
Yeah.
And
did you follow Leicester reserves throughout the rest of the season?
No, I don't think my dad did. No. He wanted to, but he couldn't get tickets.
I mean, listen, John, you know where I am on the FA Cup. I'm a huge supporter of it. I think Leicester, funny enough, Leicester winning it last year had a fairy tale element about it, and it's about, the Premier League is big business, lots of money involved. Staying in the Premier League for these clubs who are in it is far more important than winning another trophy. That's the hard nosed end of it. But you're right, it started in August. I mean, when I was at the FA, I used to go to the pre-qualifying round in the middle of August, and and I'd go to 3 or 4 games, and people would wonder why I was there. But I have a huge respect and regard, and a bit like you, John. I was up at when Liverpool played Leeds. You were lucky enough to be there. I was a 10-year-old schoolboy racing down at by 11 o'clock to get the best seat in our little lounge. And we didn't get up until about 6 o'clock because you watch the whole thing, and of course it went to extra time, and you watch Meet the Teams, interview with the managers. They'd try and get cameras on coaches, which would always break down. All these different types of elements, how they got there, and when I ended up running a couple of FA Cup final programmes for the BBC. I put all of those things back in. And it was a very special... One of the reasons was it was the only live club game in the season. Yeah. So, which for people these days, the 2 semi-finals were at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, and not televised. And... because of the Hillsborough outcome, that quite rightly they went live from there on in, because there was a major safety factor to be dealt with, way beyond the need for the games not to be live. They had to be live for the right reasons. And now the FA Cup has lost some of its glamour. I always worry when I hear somebody in the League One saying we're playing Chelsea next week, but we've got a big game against Walsall on Wednesday, so we've got to pick the right team for the right occasion. It will still always have its place. I watch the early rounds at the moment that are on, and people love to be at the games, and even though the games we are seeing are live, but they still want to be at the games. I think clubs now are, the clubs in the Premier League are major businesses. The heavyweight money is quite obviously in the league programme, but the FA Cup still is very special, and if it's one of those things. It'll be missed if it ever went anywhere else. And in terms of games, when I was the chief exec of the FA, Liverpool played Havant and Waterlooville in the Cup. And I went to the third round replay. Havant and Waterlooville played Swansea and won. And the big carrot for them was somebody was going to play at Anfield. And Havant and Waterlooville were ahead twice in that tie. Yeah, and I must admit, for all the years I'd watched Liverpool, I was desperate for Havant and Waterlooville to win, because I thought, what a story this is. In the end, I think it ended up 5-2. But the FA Cup will always be important to me. I've also had the privilege, and the absolute privilege, of walking out before the game and meeting the teams, shaking hands with the teams. I remember I did it with the first final at the Duke of Cambridge, Prince William did, and he was a young man then, and I went down the line with him, and I'd shook the hands of the West Ham team, and then went down the Liverpool team and just shook them a bit more firmer, and then went onto the touchline to sing the national anthem. I didn't realise John Motson had said in the commentary, and there's Brian Barwick, a lifelong Liverpool fan, which was true. And then we sat and watched the game, and Prince William said, how are you going to react, when the goals go in? I said, well, I will act very demurely. You won't know just how I feel about it. I said, but I've invited Trevor Brooking, who worked at the FA, to sit the other side of us, because if West Ham score, let's see how he reacts. And of course, it was 3-3 that game. In fact, Liverpool played 2 cup finals fairly close together. Liverpool, Arsenal, Liverpool, West Ham. Both games they shouldn't have won, in my view. Michael Owen rescued us in 2001. Remarkable 2 goals in about 5 minutes. Brilliant at the end of that game. And we won on penalties against West Ham. But no, so it always have a special place for me. The first cup final I went to was 71, Liverpool, Arsenal. And I got a ticket through one of those tokens. And I actually went with the school to play football in Holland, and my brother went. It was a Liverpoolian. And when we got home, I could tell the way the house was very quiet when I got back. I said, any news on the cup final tickets? And nobody said anything for about 24 hours. Then it emerged that there was this token and therefore this ticket. And over about 2.5 weeks of heavy negotiation, brackets rows, we got to a position where I got the ticket, probably unfairly as it happens. And I must admit, when I went down there on the train, I was 16, and I was almost glad to get on the train home. It was quite an experience, I thought, and of course I worked with Bob Wilson for a long time. And Bob let that goal in on the near post. And I used to remind him about that about every third week. And he used to remind me every fourth week that Arsenal went on to win that game. Yeah. So, cup finals, the cup rounds, the replays then were massive games. In that 62-63 season, I say in the book, Liverpool played Burnley, and that was the winter of the big freeze. Yeah. And the game got played over about 6 weeks, and eventually Liverpool, they drew at Burnley, and game got called off a couple of times, but they eventually played the replay. And Ronnie Moran scored in the 119th minute of the replay from the penalty spot. And from going absolutely bonkers, the crowd, it was completely silent, he said in his book, when he went up to take that. And it wasn't a great penalty, it went down the middle, and if Adam Blacklord had stayed where he was, he would have saved it, but it didn't, and it went in. And these were famous games, and for people of John and I's vintage, we remember them.
What is your most memorable match then, Brian? If you had to pick just one.
Well, I think it's very difficult, because Dave, Paul and Jed told me that really there's been 3,500 games since 1961. I think Dave almost had it down to the minute, let alone but so the one I think that has the most significance to me was winning the European Cup final for the first time
77, right?
Yeah, I just think, and it's a generational thing. If you were old enough then to remember that, you'd remember that. If you're not, you're younger, Istanbul would be huge and big. But there were other. I remember watching one of my favourite domestic games was Liverpool beating Everton 3-2 in a match where Everton were champions. This is
Was that 1970? Yeah,
1970. Everton were champions and had won at Anfield the previous season to help them win the title. And that was the 69-70s where Shanks had to sort of change the team because we got knocked out by Watford in the Cup, another famous cup tie. And I think in the book I say them by the time they played in November, he'd made 6 different changes in that team. He bought John Toshak. Highway and Hall were in the team, these Big Bamba and Little Bamba. And it was 0-0 at half time. And then Everton scored twice. And the 2 guys who scored, Joe Royle and Alan Whittle, were the same 2 who'd scored at Anfield in the spring. And so really 2-0, you're out of the game. Highway gets a goal. And he had this idea of always going. He scored the same goal in the cup finally. He'd run past the defender and go for the near post. And most people would expect him to cross the ball, but he was aiming for the near post, and he got it inside. I think I don't know whether it was probably Andy Rankin in goal. And he'd only. I spoke to him once about that goal, and he'd had a migraine all morning. He wasn't going to play anyway. He did play and he scored. Then he set up a great. Cross for John Toshak to score his first goal for Liverpool. So that's 2-2, and the crowd were going crazy because these derbies then were absolutely nip and tuck. Everton had a great side. We had a decent side, and then Chris Lawler popped up with the winner. And he was reliable, he would score goals. He scored a lot of goals from fullback, and he didn't take any penalties. He scored them from open play. In fact, he played once for England and he scored. He was one of these guys who just scored. And 3-2, place going crackers. And I'll remember it most because for some reason I went to that match wearing my best shoes, my school shoes. And when Liverpool scored the 3rd goal, one of them came off and I had to go home. I hobbled home, and it would be fair to say my mother had a view about losing a shoe, and but I did. I lost the shoe. I came home with one shoe. Memorable. That's memorable.
On that game, we had Chris Lawler's nephew with us, and we actually showed the replay, didn't we, Graham, of the goal?
Yeah, there's an old clip with Gerald Sinstadt doing the commentary.
Yeah, that would be right.
And I spoke to Brian Hall about it, and he said that's when I called him the Silent Knight, because he'd stole up to score the goal. Apparently nobody saw him until he got to the ball. But yeah, wonderful.
He scored a lot of. He scored. He scored a lot of goals like that, but he was undemonstrative, I think would be the phrase. Both as a person and as a player. He just turned up every week and he always got picked. And but he could score you a goal because nobody would mark him because you wouldn't be looking for him to be there. But no, so that's just a game. I could pick so many games out, and if you ask me tomorrow, I'd probably come up with another game. But. I love the big games. And we had some great big games.
Yeah. What's going on there, John? It sounds like the ice cream man's just showed up at your place.
That's our doorbell. I did mention about getting the computer fixed, so this is the gentleman that's come in to see it.
Right. Well, do we need to let you go and get that fixed?
Send him down to me as well.
I'll do that. I'll mention it. Yeah. Yeah. So,
who's your favourite player you've ever watched then, Brian?
I think I was a huge fan of Roger Hunt.
Yeah.
For various reasons. when people ask me what was my favourite Liverpool team, it was the '60s team, and there's a reason for that. When you're a young child, these footballers are superheroes, aren't they? They're and the '60s side, we were winning things. Liverpool was a remarkable place to be in. The Beatles, Mersey Sound. We had great comedians, Ken Dodd, the Jimmy Tarbucks. We had great poets, and we had, there was a real buzz about the place. And when I did a video in the first 1988 called "The Official History of Liverpool," and I dug into the archive and I found that panorama that I often see now used, where they're all singing in front of John Morgan, the panorama presenter, who is a bit nervous, it would be fair to say. Came up with some wonderful words, but was looking over his shoulder every 2 seconds. And at the time, that panorama was called Liverpool, the most talked about city in Europe. And in many ways it was. So the '60s side became very important to me. Also, if you reflect on it, all the pictures we saw of Liverpool were in black and white, both in television and print. So when you saw them and they were in colour, it was fantastic. It was a whole new ball game. So I'd say Roger from that era, you can't get past Kenny in terms of just his ability as a player, his ability to bring people into the game, and he played so many games. I think the great thing about footballers is how many games they play, and he played a heck of a lot of games. Magnificent footballer, great. I got to know him very well. I tell the story in the book about when Liverpool had to beat Chelsea to win the league, and went on to win the double. I went to that game professionally after. I was the producer of Football Focus, then went to the game, and Grandstand said, would I go and try and get some interviews at the end of the game? And I said, sure enough. So I was able to people knew me, so I was able to get on the pitch and get a couple of interviews. And then I went down the tunnel and I went to the dressing room area, and the door was open, and I knocked on the door to see if I could get anybody else out. And Kenny saw me. He said, "Wait, you come in." So I went in there, and it was only me plus all the players and everything. So I did feel it was at somebody else's party, and he threw his shirt at me because they're all getting undressed and going into the showers. And so then, after about 10 minutes, I thought, right, this is the time to leave because this is a private party, really. So I was on my way out, and Ronnie Moran, who was collecting all the kit together, said, "Brian, throw us that shirt, will you?" And so I did throw him that shirt, and I look back on it now, that was the shirt he wore to score the goal that set up the double, really. And Ronnie just wanted to stick it in the hamper. And, I know people didn't collect shirts then, they collected autographs, but these days it would have been worth a pretty penny. And anyway, it would have been a wonderful thing to have. So I don't go much further than Kenny in terms of I think Steven Gerrard ran him very, very close. In a period when Liverpool weren't a great side, he was a great, great player. And then currently, well, you can pick one or two or three. I mean, Mo is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So So I think you can sense that I hope you can sense, and I think John's been very kind. I've seen a lot of twists and turns for Liverpool, and the book tries to bring them to life, and I've had quite a kind reaction to it. And the next one I write will be it'll be 120 years.
I'll look forward to getting it.
Yeah. Now you mentioned there the documentary, The Official History of Liverpool Football Club, which came out in '88 as a VHS. I have to thank you for that, Brian, because I was living in New Zealand at the time, and I married my wife, who's a Kiwi, and she was a soccer fan because her dad played for the local team Tiki Punga. But she didn't have a club, and I said, well, now that we're married, you have to have a club. And she says, oh, I wonder which one I'll pick. I said, you'll pick Liverpool. And I got that video, which was on sale in New Zealand, and I sat her down and go, this is the history of the club, this is the background. And by the end of the video, she was a Liverpool fan. And so the rest is
Well, there
history.
you
So
go.
thank you very much. You've saved a marriage there with that.
Well,
with that
in many
video.
ways, I mean, I still get royalties from Cuba. You know, the amazing thing about that video was it was number one in the charts until the week before Christmas, when it was overtaken by a compilation of Watch With Mother programs. Bill and Ben, Andy Pandy, Tales of the Riverbank, and the Wooden Tops. And I was really quite proud of that. I thought, if you're gonna get knocked out by one, that'll do for me. Watch With Mother.
Graham, just to interrupt. We've got the guys coming around to look at my computer now. I'll ask him: Are you a Liverpool fan?
Do you know what? My dad was in the team he's talking about. You know the Roger Hunt team? My dad played for Liverpool then.
Oh, right. And now, and your father?
John Seeley.
John Seeley.
Yeah, he was.
Right. I know.
I remember John Seeley.
Well, come and say hello.
This is our special guest. This is our special surprised guest.
This is a special guest.
What's your name?
My name's Ben Seeley. I'm his son.
How are you, Ben? Good to see you.
Not bad with yourself. How you doing?
Very good. Talk to the legendary Brian Barwick there, who watched him play.
Well, yeah. So as a kid, my dad was a reserve team player.
I remember him.
Do you remember him? Yeah. So he played with
Oh,
Shankly.
yeah, I saw him play.
62.
He was a centre forward.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's him.
And on the week before Liverpool played Leeds in the FA Cup final, they had to go to Wolves to fulfil a final fixture.
That's it.
Shanks picked a sort of reserve side.
That's exactly
and
it.
I think Liverpool won 3-0, and I think your dad scored.
He did.
And didn't Liverpool get fined for fielding a weakened side?
They did, but no, I think they used to do that. They were very hot on it, the Football League, and quite rightly so. But no, I saw your dad play because part of when I was growing up, you had to do your turn watching the reserves before you were allowed to go and see the first team, really. Yeah. So I saw a fair bit of your dad, actually.
There we go.
Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that would have happened today?
Well, there's one thing about our shows, Brian. They're totally unrehearsrsed. And I didn't know.
I think you're proving that, John. To be fair.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we've not gone live. We're doing a recording of it. This is going out on Wednesday evening. So now we've got another guest here, so it can tell his family, and we're all on.
It was nice to meet you all. Anyway.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Good to see you.
Hold on,
John, what are the chances of that, John?
Well, I don't know. And as I say, I didn't arrange it.
Here's the thing.
Here you go.
I'm just looking at the record here. John Seeley played one league game for Liverpool and scored.
That was it.
And he only played one game full stop for Liverpool, and he scored.
Right, for the first team,
That's a goal a game, then. A goal a game.
Which will stand forever. Yeah. Hey, well,
now then, on my.
Oh, hello, you're frozen, Brian. Brian is suddenly frozen, and has he frozen at your end as well, John?
Yes, frozen at my end, yeah.
And he's disappeared. He's disappeared off the face of the earth. He's I don't know what's. Hopefully he'll connect back up with us. But wow, that was just such a coincidence. What just happened before the bloke has come to fix your computer so we'll just hang on a second, just see if Brian connects back up, because I don't even know if he knows he's. Hang on.
He's gone.
Oh, he's coming back. Hold on. Let's get him back on there. Brian, we haven't got your sound. We've got your picture, but not your sound. Hello, Brian? Can you? I can hear you now. We can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, can I suggest something?
Yeah.
We're nearly finished.
Yes.
Because my battery's about to run down.
Right. Okay.
Well,
and I'm very happy to come on in another time and reminisce with John. But I think we've had a good go, don't you?
I'll pass a very good friend of yours, a good friend of mine, is Rick Parry. He's done a lot for
Top man.
Red All Over the
I
Land
like him a lot.
fanzine, and he continues. And a couple of weeks ago now, we held a night at the Florian, Merseyside, and we'll talk about it in more depth on Wednesday evening. But
what I'm going to suggest is this is better than Wednesday evening. I'm happy that if you've recorded this, you won't get any better.
Well,
you won't get anything better.
You wouldn't get my neighbour calling round on Wednesday evening. I've even told
right.
my other half she can't come round on Wednesday evening.
No, you've had a unique bit. You have two things about your neighbour. One, I didn't expect him to be on it. But secondly, I've proved just how well I know my history of Liverpool.
Exactly. Yes, he only played the one game and you were there and had all the stats too. Yeah.
Now then, I'm going to say I've really enjoyed this. I'm going to wish Red All Over the Land all the very best. John, I think you're a top man for what you do. And Graham, I've thoroughly enjoyed being interviewed by you. And I hope this makes a bit of fun for people to listen to.
I'm sure it will do. Brian Barwick, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
The book is called 60 Years of Red and Counting by Brian Barwick. How about that then? The chances that the bloke that comes round to fix your computer, his dad played for Liverpool while we're doing a Red All Over YouTube. Just amazing.
Totally unrehearsed.
Yeah. But that's just the way it goes. Brian Barwick, thanks very much. This is the book. It's called 60 Years of Red and Counting by Brian Barwick. And Ben Seeley is the bloke that fixed your computer. And he couldn't fix it. It was too far gone.
Well, yeah, but he did help out. He salvaged some of the files. So, yeah, we got by.
Yeah.
And the good thing now is I'm hoping to arrange for his father to meet up with some former Liverpool players at the Shankly Hotel next Thursday for a lunch. So
brilliant. Well, let us know how that goes, John.
There'll be a happy ending. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, just a few things to go through before we sign off. FA Cup draw, Shrewsbury Town. What do you think?
Well, it's become a big game already because of the situation the last time when we played the under 21s, and of course we won that one, and they complained that they'd lost money because the BBC decided not to show it. However, it wasn't as they didn't lose money because of that. They lost money because they didn't beat our junior side, and they had they done, they'd have played away at Chelsea. In the end, Chelsea beat us. But now we look forward to it. I hope Liverpool put it at a decent side. We've got a lot of players now who need match time, and this is where we'll see what we've got. I just feel a lot of confidence in the way we're approaching everything at the moment. We're in the League Cup quarter-final, and we've got that to look forward to, and the FA Cup. Plus, we can put the Champions League on the sidelines now until late February, and hopefully we can go from there.
Benny, you interested in the FA Cup?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I mean, John's introduced. I didn't know there was some needle, so that's good to know. I kind of thought, yeah, it's Shrewsbury, it's great, it's a nice day out for them, but they're being Aggie, are they? Great. Well, I hope we whoop them then. I mean, they're not doing so great, are they? I started to look to check where they were in the table earlier, and they're very near the bottom of the League One, aren't they? So look, yeah, it should be fine, shouldn't it? But I imagine we'll play kid, but I don't know. Klopp doesn't always play. He had to play real kids, didn't he? When we had that clash with the Villa, when we had Villa in the League Cup, and we were already over in Qatar for that World Club Cup. But yeah, it should be fine. I'd like to see him play a good number of kids, but I think for it to really work, you got to play. I think it's good to play some, sort of higher level first team players as well. And there's certainly people like Origi and that who need a chance. So yeah, I love the FA Cup. I'm old enough that it was a big deal. I remember when there wasn't much football on TV, and I remember like 11 o'clock, the coverage would start. Bob Wilson, and it would.
In the
Yeah, so
hotels
I'm a big fan of the FA Cup.
Yeah. And John, the next issue of Red All Over the Land, when does it come out?
This Saturday.
Right, Saturday at the Villa game, the new Red All Over the Land. In fact, I'll put it over me there. There we go. This is the front cover. So we've got part 2 of the chat with Benny Punk from the Brighton Kop, and the part 1 in the current issue is I'm holding it up and you can't see me, but in the current issue is good, and I'm looking forward to the second part of that too. And what else have we got in there, John?
Well, we've got a tribute to Ray Kennedy. We've got comments about the derby, a few words about the Wolves game. Obviously, we can't cover the Milan game, but no, we've got as much in as we can, and that's the idea. We have our friend Justin from America, Mark from Australia, who contribute each issue. So yeah, we're looking forward to hopefully some good weather, because we need a bit of good weather to sell it.
Forecast is for mild at the moment. They said it's mild, yeah. So these couple of storms, they'll blow over.
I used to listen to your weather forecasts on Trent, Graham. So
they weren't very accurate, though. No,
you used to look out the window, didn't you? So
that's it, yeah. I used to make up the top temperature of the day, because they never used to give us that. I used to make it up.
What's the current travel situation on the M25 if you're doing this sort of stuff now? Doing traveling weather now, is it?
Traveling weather together. That's what it is. Yeah. Travel and weather together. All right, now you can get Red All Over the Land if you look for one of the sellers at the match. If you're going to be at the match on Saturday, you can say hi to John. John will be selling the fanzine with Red All Over the Land, Liverpool fanzine, only £2. You can't miss the chant. He's part of the sound of the match day experience at Anfield. And if they can't get to the match, how do they subscribe? Is it the email address, the website address below there, John?
It's the address below you, and just click on the subscription link, and you can buy. You can either subscribe or buy a single copy.
Okay.
And I post them out.
Yeah. We'll share that link on our social media stuff as well.
Thank you.
So that we'll try and get behind it. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Benny, thanks for coming on Red All Over YouTube. I'm sorry you didn't get to talk to Brian Barwick or join in on that, but the plan was not to have a recording of it. We were going to do it live, but he was quite insistent.
My dad never played for Liverpool, so he wouldn't have been interested in me.
That's right. And thanks to John Pearman, 26 years of Red All Over the Land, the longest lasting printed fanzine at Liverpool. Thanks to Brian Barwick as well for coming on. And to everybody, thanks a lot. See you at the match on Saturday if you're going. And remember, as always, you'll never walk alone.
Thank you.